As Rose finally exited the room, stepping back out into the main living area, she saw her mother there, standing in a very pretty yellow dress, all one piece. And there in her hands, she held a nearly identical dress, of what looked like a smaller fit. But this one was red. She could only imagine that it was meant for her. As her mother just stood there, the dress draped over one of her arms, with a very big smile on her face. I didn't know if I'd ever be able to use these, but I had them made just in case. Both my dress as well as this red one here for you. They're made out of all natural fibers. Even the dyes are completely natural based. They were made by artisans, of course. It's the best that I could do here on Earth. The design is as close as I could get to the one that we commonly wear on our homeworld. Well, without it being obvious that I was asking for something that, well, is alien in nature. This is meant to be the only clothing that we wear during the process of your bloom. I was hoping that you'd wear it, her mother said, extending her hands and holding out the little red dress. Rose stepped up to her mother and took the dress from her hands. So, you want me to wear this? I don't think it'll be a problem. Yes, you can go ahead and get rid of your other clothes for the time being. Just put them away. There'll be no need for anything else but the dress itself. And once you're changed, we can begin, her mother said with a gentle smile as she leaned over, giving Rose a kiss on the forehead. Without question, Rose went and changed her clothes, taking off everything she was wearing and putting on the red dress. For a moment, Rose stopped as she was changing in front of the mirror, beginning to look into it. There, the reflection cast still made Rose feel a bit nauseous. She could still see that bulge in the center of her back. At this point, she knew that it was a flower bud, that it was growing. But until it bloomed, Rose still thought it looked very repulsive. But she did her best to shake it off, putting on the red dress and leaving the room back to see her mother. Her mother waiting for her in the living room. After she got out, immediately began to escort her out, stopping for a moment to ask Rose to take her shoes off. After taking a second look, she noticed that her mother wasn't wearing shoes either. For a moment, Rose was concerned about stepping on something she didn't like, but she still wanted to give her mother the experience that she wanted. So she abided her will, taking off her shoes and going barefoot, just like her mother. Afterwards, her mother grasped her hand gently and led her out the front door. There they began to trek through the woods, leaving the soft grass in front of the home and journeying deeper out. Mom, don't you think we should stay a little bit closer to the cottage? I mean, what if we get lost? There's no need to worry about that, Rose. I assure you I can find our way back. There's no need to be scared. Nature is my natural element, sweetheart. And it is yours as well. You just don't know it yet. It's in your blood. But it's okay. You'll understand soon enough. You haven't spent a lot of time around nature. But that's about to change, Rose. As you are beginning to bloom, so too is your body going through many changes, her mother said as she continued to stroll, looking forward with a smile on her face as she explained it. So, just like my mother once taught me, it is now my responsibility to teach you, as one day you will teach your children. Such is the process of life. In time, all things come of age, and must pass through the gates, bloom and bring life to the world themselves, just as you have before them. This is the natural cycle of things. It is a beautiful process. Sometimes it can be sad or frightening, but regardless, it is always beautiful. Unique and special to every living thing, her mother said as they continued to walk through the woods. Rose simply staring at her mother. Out here surrounded by nature, gentle amounts of light trickling through the treetop cover seemed to cast her mother in sort of a new light. She always thought her mother was beautiful, but here, surrounded in nature, her hair down and untied or bound, not restricted, simply flowing in the gentle breeze that swept through this area, she seemed to have an almost unnatural beauty to her that Rose found captivating, even more so than ordinarily. Now, Rose, since you have begun to bud, so too will the other unique abilities of our people begin to emerge, and you, just as I did, and just as all of our people have, will begin to form a connection with nature. You will begin to have the ability to commune with nature in ways that other beings can scarcely imagine. It is a wondrous process, and as you are starting to bud, it is one that you should now be capable of. So, that's what we're going to do today. You and I together shall commune with nature. I will teach you to feel the essence of life, to let it flow through you, and to allow the essence of your life to flow out into all other living things, to weave your essence into the fabric of nature. So, does that sound fun? Mayrie said, turning to Rose, still with a cheerful smile, pushing some strands of blonde hair behind her ear. Mom, that sounds awesome. I mean, beautiful, and all of that stuff. For a moment, Mary giggled. Awesome will do just fine, she replied, as long as you're happy about it. Plants can respond to emotions, you know, and being a plant yourself, I would hope you would have guessed that this far along, she said, reaching out and pinching Rose's cheeks a bit, as she smiled and giggled. Mom, she said, feeling as if she was being treated a little too childishly. Rose rubbed her cheeks a bit and looked down at the ground as she walked, but she still couldn't help but have a warm smile creep across her face. And as she looked down, she stopped for a moment, seeing the grass around her feet and in between her toes. Rose had never actually gone barefoot on grass before, and stopped for a moment, feeling the sensation below her. For some reason, something compelled her to simply stand there and feel it. For a moment, her mother turned around, after taking a few steps in front of her, noticing that Rose had stopped, and was simply looking down at the ground. It was at that point Rose began to notice something very strange, something very new, at least to her. As she stood there, she began to notice the blades of grass beginning to curl around her feet, not completely binding her or anything of that sort, but ever so slightly. She could see all of the blades of grass around where she stood, bending very gently, almost as if they were caressing, beginning to gently press themselves against her feet, wrapping in between her toes. And for the moment, Rose looked at it with astonishment. Was this new? Would the grass have done this in any other place? Or is it because I'm budding? She thought to herself, staring down at the grass caressing her feet. It's because of the bloom, sweetheart, she heard her mother say as she finally looked up to see her mother smiling in her direction. During the bloom, we emanate large amounts of natural energy. All of the living things in nature can sense this. They are drawn to it, as the energy we produce is nurturing to all living things. The energy we produce is much like love for nature itself, and the grass, the leaves, the trees, even the wind itself can feel this, and wishes to return those feelings. And so just as you are giving your energy to nature, nature is attempting to return its energy to you. Kindness and kindness, for love, and equal exchange, back and forth. This too is part of the process, her mother said, with a nice smile on her face, as she approached Rose, placing her hand gently on her cheek.